Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of this episode is that a baguette in your pocket, or are you just a happy Francophile? Passion, identity, and why people become obsessed with other cultures.
Yes. Is this one you came up with, or is this from a...
No, I'll get into it. I'll explain where it comes from, because this one, I've been avoiding this one. It's a little personal. It's a little personal.
Right.
But we'll get to that. And for those of you who don't know, Francophilia is a love of all things French.
Oh, God. For a minute, I thought you were going to say it's making love to hot dogs.
Oh, no. We're about boom.
Good night, everybody.
And philia. There you go. Come on, Shecky. You throw something out like that, you got to be on the button.
I know.
So philia comes from the Greek word meaning love of. So you also have Anglophilia, which is love of all things English.
Mm-hmm.
Sinophilia, which is love of all things Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Edolophilia.
Buttophilia? All things butts?
Here we go. We've been off for
a just have Ophelia, who's a character in, I think, what is it, Macbeth?
No, was it
Hamlet?
Hamlet, wasn't it? Yeah, Ophelia was his girlfriend, right? Or he was. But then also you have hemophilia, which is kind of weird, which is like a rare rare blood disease where the blood has trouble clotting. And for you Anglophiles out there, hemophilia used to be called the royal disease.
Ooh.
Because Queen Victoria of England had the gene that would pass on hemophilia. And she passed it on to some of her kids, which were then married off into other royal houses of Europe. And a lot of her male descendants had hemophilia. The most famous of which was Crown Prince Alexei of Russia, who was the son of Tsar Nicholas II and Queen Elizabeth's granddaughter, Alexandra.
Wow. They all intermarried with each other, didn't they?
I know.
It's amazing they can even talk and stand up and stuff.
They say that Queen Victoria, her hemophilia was just a mutation. Like it wasn't in her bloodline before her. It was just a genetic mutation that she passed on. But the thing is, philia, it always seemed odd to me why you would call it hemophilia.
Yeah.
But the philia also can mean a tendency to. So a tendency to bleed.
Confusing as hell.
Yeah. But today we're going to be talking specifically about Francophilia, Anglophilia, and the obsessive love some people have for other cultures.
Yeah, all right.
And we all have friends like this. Somebody who's way into another culture, maybe too into another culture.
Yeah. Yeah. The rest of the world America used to be.
I know. Not anymore.
Not so much anymore. I do a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
International traveling. And
they don't really want to know anymore.
The luster has come off.
Yeah. But they may have taken a yoga class at the community center and suddenly their house is full of, or their apartment's full of like Buddha statues and incense.
Yep.
Or maybe they took like a 5-day organized tour to Spain, and when they come back, they're wanting to go out for tapas every night at 10 o'clock.
God, I love tapas, but not at 10 o'clock. That's ridiculous.
Have you performed in Spain yet? In Spain?
No, we haven't. We've been invited. There's a festival there. I can't remember why it hasn't happened, but it's possible in the future.
They usually go out to eat like at 10 at night.
That is not me. I'm going to be in bed.
Or maybe your friends, they binge watch a few seasons of Downton Abbey, and suddenly they start throwing in English words into their language.
There was a kid from my college who went overseas to England for the summer, came back with a British accent. And everybody was just calling him on it. But then he insisted that it was not, he was not putting it
Really?
on, that it was real. And I always fantasized about the idea of him just being trapped. Like for
Yeah.
some, he did it to,
Yeah.
whatever. And then he got kind of trapped and had to keep that going for the rest of his life.
Yeah, how do you get back out of that? How do you
Yeah.
just suddenly start talking again with like a Midwestern accent?
I feel bad
There's a
for him.
yeah, there's a t-shirt. I don't blame him. I mean, it'd be much more fun to hear people speak with an English
Yeah.
accent.
Well, he was pretty dramatic. He was a theater
Yeah.
major,
So there's a tea shop here in Albuquerque, which is like a veritable shrine to Englishness.
Oh,
And
boy.
you can go in there and you can rent out the Agatha Christie room or the Sherlock Holmes room. And they come out, they're wearing like Victorian, like servants' dresses and serve you your high tea. And it's fantastic. It's
Oh, my
fantastic.
God.
I love it. I love it.
What
It's over
is
the
high
top.
tea? I've never understood. Is high tea just fancy tea with lots of finger sandwiches and stuff?
Yeah. They bring it out. It's like a full kind of meal. I mean, they bring out the tray with the different layers on it, and you have like the dessert finger foods, and then you have the little sandwich, like cucumber sandwiches, and then
I
you
like
have
cucumber sandwiches.
yeah.
Can
You actually,
just wolf them down? Like, is there enough to get a meal out of it?
when it first comes out, you're thinking, "There's no way I'm going to get filled up on this," but you actually do. Because
Really?
you're drinking so much tea,
Right.
and that bread just expands. I guess.
Right. Yeah, it's like a sponge.
Yeah. So we love it. We used to go to the book club over there, Mary and I. So they'd send out a book like The Scarlet Pimpernel, and then you'd read it, and then you'd show up and you'd all have high tea and talk about it with a group. You
and I have both gone down an Agatha Christie black hole
I know.
in different times in our lives.
I know.
Were you just trying to read them all or something?
I did. It was
you read every single Agatha Christie book?
Not the Poirots. I read
Poirot.
all of the Poirots. Yeah, which was
well. That's just a slice.
Yeah,
You got to read.
She's
the couple?
written. Tuppence, Timmy and Tuppence, or something like that. I can't remember what their names are.
I never got into
Poirot. Poirot, you reach a point about 30 books in when you're just like, Jesus Christ, I can't read these anymore. And so I took off. But Mary had bet me that I couldn't read them, by the time I turned 60. So
you did it. Wow.
Woo.
Good work.
Yeah, I don't put that on the resume.
I'm going to say that at your your graveside.
Just say that and nothing else. And then just
fact about John.
And then cue the flaming lips. Do you realize? And that's it.
You got it.
But John, you definitely have a friend who was way into another culture.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you're me.
It's you. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. You were into Proust. That was what you were into. It just so happened that Proust was French, and then.
Well, we will try to dissect it here as to why I got into it.
Yeah. You were drinking very heavily during this time.
I was. I remember when we tried to hitchhike from London to Paris.
Yes.
And it was awful. Like nobody would pick us up.
No. Well, we looked terrible.
Yeah.
We both had long hair, and you had big lamb chops. Remember those?
Yeah. You were wearing were you wearing your like army jacket or something?
We looked like killers. And the hitcher had just come out, right?
The hitcher had just come out. So it'd be like every time we'd be out hitchhiking, a bus would come by with a sign that said, "Don't pick him up, the hitcher." But we were hungry and broke and smelly. And remember when we finally got to Paris, you were still completely miserable, but I was having the time of my life.
Yeah. You wanted to see it all. And we had to carry didn't we have to carry stuff with us wherever we went, or did we drop that off somehow? We dropped it.
Yeah, we dropped it off at a hostel. But remember, I wanted, like the first day, I wanted to go see the Louvre.
Everywhere. You wanted to go everywhere. I just wanted to kill myself. And I was so hungry, I ended up stealing croissants from a bakery, a French bakery. I still owe them a an amends. I'm going to
Really?
go back.
We should go back and do it. It was like Les Miserables. We were
sorry
so
about that.
we were. It was like Les Miserables. You were like Jean Valjean stealing bread for us.
I was.
But remember, I wanted to go to the Louvre, and you were still kind of miserable. And on the way to the Louvre, we decided we'd stop and have some beers before we went in.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And this was hours before the Louvre closed, before.
Right. But we got to talking and drinking.
So we had a few beers of it, and we suddenly looked up and saw that it was like 30 minutes before the Louvre closed. So
I think we had more than a few beers.
Yeah. So we took off running and just ran through the Louvre. We saw everything. We ran through the Louvre, completely drunk, just going by like, oh, there's a Mona Lisa.
There's
yeah, Victory of the Samothrace. And they just keep running. We're after the Medusa. And we saw the whole thing in 30 minutes. So if you ever go to Paris and someone tries to tell you need more than one day to see the Louvre, don't buy the multi-day pass.
Yeah, don't do it.
You can see it all, but you got to run.
You got to run. And we did. God, that was crazy.
Yeah. So this topic actually comes to us from my wife, Mary.
Okay.
Yeah. And at some point early on in our relationship, I had sat Mary down and revealed to her that I had been a Francophile when I was younger. As if I was somehow like no longer a Francophile,
How did she take it?
Well, it's kind of like when someone tells you, I used to be into meth a lot when I was younger. I'm okay now. I'm not so into it now. It's kind of the same reaction. And when I told her, Mary told me that her grandfather, her mother's father, had been an Anglophile.
Oh,
and what exactly is Anglophilia? Well, the writer Joe Queenan says, quote, Anglophilia, like pornography, is one of those things that are hard to describe, but you know when you see them. So I think he's paraphrasing. There was a Supreme Court justice back in the 60s. Yeah, said that I know it when I see it. But Queenan adds, quote, at heart, American Anglophiles despise their compatriots, believing Americans are loud, rude, and afflicted with poor taste, which makes them vastly inferior to the British, who at their worst are merely cheeky. And apparently, which is irreverent, in an amusing way. But that's the way it was with Mary's grandfather. She said that every conversation you'd have with him eventually came back to how much better things were in England. And she said he was especially obsessed with English shipping history and England's use of pneumatic tubes.
There are a lot of pneumatic tubes in England. And in New York. Did you know that? In New York, there's like pneumatic tubes everywhere because that's how they used to
get mail around,
in office buildings and stock exchanges. So there's like these tube systems everywhere.
Yeah, that's what he was into. Apparently, Mary said he'd always come back to how they use pneumatic tubes in England to deliver mail and how much better it is.
We had like you would see pneumatic tubes over here, mainly at banks.
Right.
In the 70s and 80s. But there a lot of fast food restaurant chains would test themselves, to see if they're in the franchise, see if it's a franchise.
Yeah.
And there was a fast food restaurant called Shoots. Did you ever go there?
I do remember Shoots.
And Shoots was you would pull up and you would order your food and hamburgers, I think, and then they would just shoot it through a pneumatic tube to your car. But the problem was that if you ordered a drink, they couldn't shoot the drink. So somebody would run out with a tray of drinks. Needless to say, I don't think that franchise made it.
Yeah. It kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
We're like, please come inside for your drink.
But I just remember somebody come out with a tray with all your drinks on them.
But the signage was made. Shoots. They
Shoots. I loved it. And
That's funny you mentioned it. I was trying to think of the name when you started. I remember this place. But anyway, Mary said this was all the time with her grandfather talking about England, which
oh
is kind of
boy.
unusual because he wasn't an academic, he wasn't an English professor, he was a logger. He was in the logging industry
What?
in the Pacific Northwest back in the 20s, all the way until he died at age 99.
Was he like a lumberjack, or did he own?
He started out his family. He was the youngest of 13 kids,
Mhm.
only 4 of whom lived.
Okay. Wow.
And his parents were from Cornwall, England, and they had come over to work the mines in Colorado. I
Well,
think
that's where it came from his parents.
I know. You would think after like 13 kids, I'm sure they were like, "Oh, this place! It was so much better in England. Why'd we come over?" But anyway, Mary asked me. She said, "Why? Why is it that some people, for example, me and her grandfather, become obsessed with other cultures?"
Yeah.
And it's true that, one of the reasons why we study anthropology is to learn about other cultures and compare and contrast how people do different things throughout the world. And a lot of people like to travel and Americans love, like with a small L, I think, other cultures.
But that doesn't explain my obsession with Luxembourg.
I know. Luxembourgeois or whatever they call them. You can't get enough, which is strange. You just pass through on the train.
I love banking. International banking is like.
Yeah, you never hear people that. I'm sure they're out there, people who are obsessed with Luxembourg. I don't know.
No, I doubt it.
But rich Americans especially love to travel to Europe, for example, like London, Paris, obviously, French Riviera, Amalfi Coast, Greece. And I would say that for all their talk about America being the best country ever in the history of the world, it seems like rich Americans really don't want to spend their vacations here. So, I mean, you never hear about Jeff Bezos taking his vacation down at the Lake of the Ozarks, for example, or renting out the Buc-ee's in Amarillo, And, when he went to... Really? You have to go to a Buc-ee's. You have to go to a Buc-ee's.
I know.
When's the next time you're going by? Oh, no. So,
we'll talk Buc-ee's. We'll do an episode on Buc-ee's.
Okay. But I was going to say that this isn't a political show, but I would say to all the other countries in the world, next time our current president starts to try to shove you around a little bit, just say, you know what? We're not taking any more American tourists. We're not taking any more school groups. We're not taking any more bus tours.
Straight.
America, you're great.
American
just stay there.
Tourists
you love it so much.
Tourism in general is being cut down a lot by countries like Spain. I know they're like anti-tourism. Like tourism's gotten out of hand over in Europe.
Oh yeah, there's just so many people. There's so many people in the world, and they all want selfies with the famous monuments. So, but it's fun to travel. It's fun, but I would say being obsessed with a country or obsessed with another culture is on an entirely different level.
Yeah.
And I've been avoiding this. I've been avoiding this topic for almost a year because usually I look at humans when we do this show. I look at humans as a whole throughout evolutionary history. And this topic is going to force me to look at one particular human, which is me.
Yep.
And as anyone knows who's been in therapy, it's very hard to look at yourself and also very hard to look at your younger self.
Ugh. I don't look at my younger self.
I know. It's hard. And John, you've known me now for over 45 years.
Jesus. That's embarrassing.
You've seen many incarnations of me. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like Jefferson Starship and Colonel Sanders or something. I've reinvented myself many times. And as you know, there was a time in high school and college when I was absolutely obsessed with France.
Very true.
And in fact, a running joke that you and our friend Frank, who's the host of Media Room and Great Lakes Opinion on Substack, you guys used to have a running joke that said a conversation with McCray went something like this: France, 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 Marcel Proust, France, 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 Marcel Proust, France, France, France. And that wasn't an exaggeration. I was
No, but it was said with love because it was fascinating. I mean, I've always been sort of amazed, I'm amazed at your talent to learn languages. You're one of those people who can pick up languages very quickly. Yeah. And the fact that I don't know, that you were a Proust scholar. I mean, it's amazing that you got out of Kansas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's an article titled "The Francophile Condition," and the writer Matthew Pink says about Francophiles in general.
Yeah.
He says, quote, "Visit their homes and on their bookshelves you will easily spy a taste for Albert Camus, for Baudelaire, for Flaubert. The more serious and intellectual heavyweight Francophile will almost certainly have a Proust or two lurking about. There will also be a frame poster somewhere in the house of Le Chat Noir, which means the black cat, which was a
right.
cabaret in the Montmartre district. Of that you can be sure." And I didn't have the Chat Noir poster. I had a poster of a guy on a bike with a baguette on his back.
Yes, you did.
But every other thing Pink says in that relates to me. He's nailed me. And he continues, quote, "Francophiles can purse their lips and narrow their cheeks and speak through their throats with the very best. Nonchalance par excellence is par for the course. Cigarettes are sucked hard, and poetry is often contemplated, but rarely written."
It's a bummer that you never got into the food. Because we didn't have enough money to make French food. But you worked at a restaurant, a French restaurant.
I was horrible. I was a horrible waiter. They hated me.
But I was the only one. French.
I could speak French, and the chef, the owner of the restaurant, was a Napoleon fanatic.
Oh,
and I knew something about Napoleon. So even though I sucked and all the other waiters hated me, he would call me in to drink French beer and talk about Napoleon in French after we got off work and the restaurant closed.
That's sweet.
So that's the only way I made it. But I was terrible. But all of this stuff Pink's describing is me. It describes me down to a T. And in my senior year in I'll give you some more examples. In my senior year of high school in Kansas City, I once asked out a girl and took her to a French restaurant where I spent the whole evening speaking in French to the waiters and ordering us wine. and they actually served me, even though I was only 17, because they thought I was like a foreign exchange student who was stranded in Kansas City. It was out on the day with
So you grew up drinking wine. So
right. So they served me, pour l'amour or pour la patrie,
Did the girl, what happened with the girl? Did she stay with you or?
No, you can imagine being a teenage girl from Raytown, Missouri, for example, and going out on a date with a young Maurice Chevalier. It was like she did not. Everybody else at that time were listening to like Duran Duran and Culture Club. I was listening to Jacques Brel and Serge Gainsbourg.
I'm more freaked out that you were dating a girl from Raytown. How did that happen?
I met her. I was a janitor in a building, and I was the night janitor. You went to that building.
Oh, yeah, we roller skated in that building, didn't we?
I used to roller skate around in there. But I was the night janitor, and she worked like the phone. She and this other dude worked the phones at night. And so, just going by emptying the trash at some point, I was like, "Hey, do you want to go out sometime?" She's like, "Yeah." And she probably thought like the janitor, I'd be taking her out to Worlds of Fun or something. I took her to a French restaurant.
Did anything happen after? Or did you guys?
No, she hated it. She actually found the French thing kind of annoying, I think.
Yeah.
I remember another time at high school when our principal was doing the announcements and he was announcing how, what the boys basketball team had done and the boys football team had done. And then almost as an afterthought at the end, he said, "Oh, and John McCray won a blue ribbon at the district French competition." And all the guys in class were like, "Oh, McCray, oh la la, oh la la."
What was the competition? What did you do? What did you have to do?
You'd have to go in and speak. You'd have to speak for a panel of like 3 judges. They'd ask you to. Yeah.
It's like the French version of the Bet Din when you have to face the 3 rabbis to convert.
Yeah.
I apologize for my lighting here. I'm trying to get the right lighting.
It's like that, only like it's middle-aged French teachers.
You won the blue ribbon?
Yeah, I was at that time. But it was like, but after you hear about the football team and the track, it was like, oh, McCray! They were like shoving me.
Yeah, well, we were nerds. We weren't even nerds. We were just sort of, what were we? Outcasts, I think, or just likable, like maybe like broken toys, misfit toys.
Because I was thinking I was the kid who was smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, wearing a beret, reading Baudelaire at a cafe in a strip mall in Overland Park, Kansas. I'd be out there in the parking lot, with my Baudelaire. And the closest thing I could think of is like the character of Dave Stoller in the 1979 film Breaking Away.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah,
and
the Italian. The Italianophile.
Right. And if you've never seen the movie or haven't seen it in a long time, it still holds up.
It does? Have you watched it recently?
Yeah, I watched it for this episode. And the shirt actually comes from the movie because
you're wearing a t-shirt that says Cutters on it.
Right. And the main character, Dave Stoller, played by actor Dennis Christopher, is a local Indiana kid, born and raised in Bloomington, Indiana, who's obsessed with Italy and Italian bike racing.
Yes.
And I forgot, his friends are like a young Dennis Quaid, Daniel Stern, and they remember Jackie Earl Haley, who was Kelly Leak in The Bad News Bears.
Oh, right.
He's great.
And a totally different character in this.
Yeah.
That's right. God.
It's just a great movie for that time period. Late 70s.
It really is.
But Dave Stoller rides around on his Italian bike, and he speaks with an Italian accent, and he sings Italian operas.
Shaves his legs.
Yeah, there's that great scene where he's shaving his legs, and his dad comes out, and he's like, he's shaving. And his mom's like, well, he should be shaving. It's his legs,
So he could go faster on the bike, right?
Right. And remember, he's always yelling out like, buongiorno, Papa, buongiorno, Mama. And there's another great scene where his dad says, I'm not Papa, I'm your goddamn father. And she's your goddamn mother. And I just want to give a shout out right now. If you could see this if you're watching this on YouTube,
or
there's
Patreon.
a book. Yeah, or Patreon. There's a book called Breaking Away, a Retrospective by the writer Steve Basford, which I'm holding up here. And I had posted about this shirt because Cutters is what the university kids call the local kids. It's kind of a derogatory term.
Right.
And I had posted this when Mary got me this shirt, and Steve Basford reached out to us on Facebook, I think it was, or Instagram, and said like, hey, I've written a book about breaking away. So Steve,
we should have him on.
I know. We'll have to come back to
he
this.
reached out. That's cool.
I know. It was very cool. And the book is great. If you love the movie, it's like a really good, so it goes into all the actors, all the characters. And apparently Dave Stoller is based on a real guy that the screenwriter Steve Tessich knew back at the University of Indiana back in the 1960s. And the guy's name was David Blaze. And in the book, Basford says, he quotes the Bloomington Herald-Times, who once wrote about David Blaze, that, quote, while he was a student, Blaze would walk down 3rd Street singing Neapolitan songs and Italian arias. His dress aimed to mimic Italian style, building himself into a different character, someone far removed from the scrawny, self-proclaimed shrimp that Blaze saw in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that's the character of Dave Stoller completely. You know what I mean?
That's all of us trying to escape the misery of adolescence. Late adolescence, particularly.
Exactly. But I never really thought about why I was obsessed with France. And that's what Mary was asking. She wasn't
Yes.
just how I was obsessed or how it manifested itself.
Yeah.
But the why seemed like something deeper, something more psychological to me.
Yes.
And then it was like, what's the reason for any obsession? Like, what are we getting out of it? That's how I
Right.
tried to approach this one.
Identity. Yeah. We're trying to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you can kind of, I mean, I'm already trying to weasel out of it by trying to make it about everybody. You see how I'm doing that. If my shrink was here, he'd be like, but we're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about you. When I tried to like put it off on everybody. And you could always
that
say
shrink
like,
you had was good, man.
oh, he was good. He nailed
Yeah.
my ass. He wouldn't let
Yeah.
me get away with anything.
Yeah.
But you could say, well, I just really love doing it, but that still doesn't really explain the why. Why do you
Mhm.
love it?
Yeah.
And for example, I've known you now for 45 years as well.
Yeah.
And as long as I've known you, you've always been obsessed with being a performer and actor.
Yes.
And if someone said to you, why?
Yeah.
Why are you in it?
Jesus. Yeah. Why? I don't know why. I have no clue. I guess because I was successful at cracking people up, I was class clown, and that kind of, I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't. I got good grades, but I wasn't like a super bright person. So
what I mean, but if someone said why, it'd be like it,
I think
and that's what
I have.
What was it? I mean, what was it doing for like what?
Yeah.
What did it do for you, or
Well,
what
it
did
got
it?
me a community of people, an identity. I identified as that person, and it became like, any other clique in high school, the freakers or the jocks or whatever. And women liked it. Women liked laughing.
Yeah.
They all say that sense of humor is more important than looks, which is not true at all. But if you've got a B- in looks, and you got an A in funny
humor,
you can get yourself up a notch, maybe up to a flat B.
keep the lights down low. Sit outside when you go out in the evenings, but crack a lot of jokes. But it's difficult, and I was really kind of, like I say, avoiding it, trying not to do this episode. But once Mary gets her in her mind, she just starts shaking me like a dog toy until my squeaker comes out. And so for the past year, she's been saying to me stuff like, when are you going to do my idea? When are you going to do my episode? And I finally couldn't get out of it. So I've been reading everything I could about obsessions and passions and trying to figure out why people become fixated on certain cultures.
Yeah.
And it's been like a crazy, the journey, the research for this one's been crazy and sometimes disturbing, about cultural appropriation.
Yeah, you kind of went down to, because you've been working on this one for a while.
I know. I have so many books on this one when you see the list. And people who pretend to be a culture that they're not, sometimes people say that they're pretendians, for example, will claim that they're American Indian, even though they're not.
Right.
Apparently in Germany, there's a whole subculture in Germany that loves to dress up like Native Americans.
Really?
And they'll go out to the woods in like Bavaria and stuff and camp out and pretend like it's the American West back in the 1800s.
You're kidding. God, humans are so weird.
I know.
Well, there are probably people here doing it with Vikings.
I know. Everybody's doing it. I mean, you can't say one culture's exempt from that. Everybody becomes obsessed with them.
Well, reenactors in general are a real interesting subset.
Yeah, I'll try to post. I was going to talk about, we may have to save that one because it was once I got into it, it was just crazy. I love talking about reenactors.
Oh,
it's so much fun, but also it's like
live action role play people. Oh my God. Yeah, there's some good stuff out there.
Then I got into reading about genealogy and DNA, which needs its own episode as well.
Yeah.
And then also a bunch of people were talking about like Anglophilia and becoming obsessed with other cultures as being like a romanticized fantasy about a colonial past. And then they get into the fact that that past usually doesn't include people of color.
Right.
So if you think about the Anglophiles, who the kind of masterpiece theater Anglophiles, they're usually like obsessed with Edwardian England, which was like in the early 1900s up until the beginning of World War One. And that was when the English population was a little more homogeneous, meaning it was mostly white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, then there's the Renaissance people at the Ren fairs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You were there too. That's the
worked
same
there.
thing.
I made good money at the Renaissance Festival, man.
But you were those people were kind of obsessed with another culture as
Oh,
well.
yeah. There were people who would just dress up and walk around all day who didn't even work there.
That's what I love. How would you kind of like make a joke with them or something and then realize that they're like paying customers?
Right. Yeah. You'd be talking to them like off the clock, and then you'd realize they had an actual real sword. You know, be like, oh Jesus,
yeah,
this is somebody.
You're asking them for a smoke or something like, hey man, you want to take a smoke break, and you realize, methinks you do not want to. What is tobacco, dear Lord? So anyway, I came up with a couple salient points that seem to resonate with me about why I became obsessed with another culture and kind of why people become obsessed with anything. So John, to investigate these points, I thought you and I could journey back into the abyss, back into Mordor, back into our adolescence.
Oh God, I don't want to go back there.
I know, that's what I kept trying to tell Mary. And we'll try to see what the origins were of our obsessions. Me for all things French, and you for acting and performing.
Sure.
And I'm not going there alone. So you have to go.
I'll go in. I'm going to put on my spelunking helmet with my flashlight.
Yeah.
We're going in.
But first, we have to take a break and give a quick shout out to our Patreon.
Oh my God!
We have some Patreons here.
You guys, it's pretty cool. We started this. Somebody advised us to start the Patreon page, and for those of you who don't know, it's a website. Patreon, and it's a way to give a little bit back to the show so that we can put it back in the show to do things like, buy Professor McCray books but more importantly, we want to start doing some live remote shows. So if you're interested,
we need deposit money. We need deposit money for these venues.
That's right. We basically have 3 levels of Patreons. For $3, you can get your BS degree in intro to Anthro. It's the Anthro undergraduate degree.
Okay,
and it's $3 a month. And you'll see if you go to Patreon.com and then search an intro to Anthro, or you can give $5 and get your master's. Oh, and each of these have different things that come with them. Or you can invest $10 a month and get your doctoral degree.
Listen, that goes on the resume, folks. That goes on the resume. AI will pick that up immediately when they scan your resume.
And we have 2 new doctoral degree people who have joined.
Candidates. We have some candidates here.
Yes. We have Jamie McCray. Interesting. That's bizarre that you guys would have the same. And then Steve McCray. So I don't know if they're related to you at all, but
it's a common name. It's a common name, I think. Those aren't my parents, by the way. I'm not going to say that's not my mom and dad.
No,
by the way,
it's your brother and his wife, who are fantastic people and supporters of us. So.
And I gave them their shirts, their Intro to Anthro shirts and socks when they were here, and they looked very good.
That's right, good. And that's what you get if you do if you do that. Oh my God, do you get stuff? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah,
it's pretty. It's fun. It's fun, and we're gonna start doing like what do you call it? Like a town hall kind of
Or
thing? Like,
yeah, town hall. Well, town hall. People come in expecting to complain about things because you're doing town hall. So we're going to do like live study groups where
yeah,
we will get together once a month, and it's coming up for our undergrads, our masters, and our PhDs.
that's
We'll
right.
get together. I'll yank some things out of some anthropology news from the headlines, and
Yeah.
we'll just rap. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like
We'll
room
just
222. I'm a
yeah,
cool
but
professor.
exactly. It's like a discussion session with your professor, in keeping with our, conceit. Yeah. So
Okay.
anyway, it's really
Thank you
fun,
so
and
much that
yeah,
all to Steve and Jamie and all of the people who signed up for the free Patreon. Thank you.
yeah.
We have more stuff coming.
Yes, yes, we do, and we'll be giving you guys more updates as we move along. So that's Patreon, Patreon.com, and then just search for an intro to Anthro with two
Yeah,
humans, and you will
it's very
see
good.
us. Yeah.
Good work on setting that up too, bud. By
Oh,
the way,
thank you.
John.
I'm still sort of working on it, but it's coming along.
It looks good. It looks good. I think it looks good.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to business. First off, it was very hard to find books specifically about the psychology of Francophilia. But I found if I placed my Francophilia within the psychology of passion, I began to, I could dig down a little deeper and things began to make sense.
Okay. That was
So
the trap door you opened.
Right. And it took a while. I had to read a lot of crazy
Oh, we
stuff.
know it took a while. We've all been waiting for this episode.
Yeah. Who'd you talk to, Mary? So in a 2010 article titled "On Passion for Life Activities: The Dualistic Model of Passion," psychologist and researcher Robert Valrond defines passion as a strong inclination toward a self-defining activity that people love, find important, and which they invest time and energy.
Yeah.
And Valrond says that a passion is much more than experiencing love for an activity. It also entails valuing the activity to a high degree, devoting ample time to it, and making it one of the central aspects of one's identity and life.
God, it's so weird. Humans are so weird. Is it connected to tribalism? Like, what is it?
Well, he says that what happens is people engage in various activities throughout life.
Yeah.
In the hope of satisfying the basic psychological needs of autonomy, which is a desire to feel a sense of personal initiative.
Yes.
Competence, a desire to interact effectively with the environment. And relatedness, a desire to feel connected to significant others.
Yes. Yeah. And that, and I can see how that would do that. That obsession with France, or the obsession with performing.
Right.
It brings in a circle of people. It gives you an identity. This is what I'm about. And you end up knowing a lot more about it than other people, so you can show off that way.
Yeah, you feel like for yourself and for others, you feel like you're competent. That's what he's talking about for competence.
Human beings love telling other human beings how when they know stuff the other person doesn't.
I know. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. That's anyone that goes out with a wine, somebody who knows wines or cigars or whatever.
If I see another person stick their nose way down in there like that, where they just swirl it and stick their nose way, I'm going to smack it out of their hand.
Or just hold it there. Hold it on their nose. You love it so much. But Valrond says what happens is of these activities that we try out, a limited few will be perceived as particularly enjoyable and important. And he says these activities come to be so defining that they represent central features of our identities. For instance, he says, those who have a passion for playing basketball, playing the guitar, writing poetry, do not merely engage in these activities. They are basketball players, guitar players, and poets, which is what you're describing.
Yeah.
And
especially
he says
guitar players or guitar collectors.
Yeah.
There's a subset of men who collect guitars, watches, wristwatches, and pens. Have you? I mean, I don't get it. I'm like,
it
want them
connects
though.
with them. Yeah, like the
Yeah,
watch is.
it gives them satisfaction. It
Yeah,
calms them. I don't know,
yeah,
but they
but
love it.
it's that whole thing about competence, autonomy. They came to it themselves.
Right.
They know a lot about watches.
Yes, they
And
do.
maybe relatedness, like that's what Valron's saying is we're all basically after those three psychological needs.
Yep, makes
Uh,
sense.
and he said that the people he studied about passion, initial engagement in the passionate activity started in their teen years.
Interesting.
And that's because adolescence is a crucial period of identity construction.
Right.
And in
Don't
the
you
booklet,
know it?
yeah, in the
I dropped
booklet,
the ball on that one, unfortunately.
really. In the booklet, Developing Adolescence, a reference for professionals, the American Psychological Association says that, quote, adolescence is the first time when individuals have the cognitive capacity to consciously sort through who they are and what makes them unique.
Wow.
And the APA further states that emotional development during adolescence involves establishing a realistic and coherent sense of identity
Yes.
in the context of relating to others and learning to cope with stress and managing emotions.
I think mine was drinking and drugs because, suddenly
Yeah.
you're associated with people who like that. It's
Yeah.
enjoyable. You
Yeah.
start to learn, things about drugs that people who don't take drugs don't know.
Yeah. Like, like when you take out the little glass from the medicine cabinet to like,
Oh, right. The shelf for cocaine. That is exactly right.
Yeah.
That's
How
all
to
the
like
tricks
like
and the
yeah.
paraphernalia and all of that.
And that's kind of who, like, you think about all the people you knew in high school or college, there were always people that were just kind of known for what they were doing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like you'd have like you mentioned, the guitar guy. So he was the guitar guy that knew all about like Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd.
Oh, and then at a party, they'd break it out and we'd all have to listen to him play. Oh my God.
Or like you're saying, the drug addict, like that was an identity too. Like that you
very
could,
much so. That was probably my core, even more than performing.
Yeah. and some people they'd be like even if you were the loser, oh, that guy's never going to amount to anything.
Yeah.
But he had an identity, you know what I mean? That was his identity that he had, even if he gave himself like, I'm never going to amount to anything.
Right. Right.
And if you think about in our group, we had Frank was the musician.
Yes.
Our group of 4 friends.
Yes.
Jeff was the graphic artist.
Yeah. The artist in general.
You were the actor.
Yeah.
And
performer.
I was the French. Yeah.
And you were the French guy.
It was like the village people. It was like the village people.
Oh my God, we were. How did the 4 of us find each other? I mean, that is just the craziest thing. We were the Cutters.
Yeah, we were the Cutters.
Oh, man.
So I have to ask you, when did you first know that you wanted to be a performer or an actor?
Boy.
What age were you when that kind of hit?
You mean as a profession or just enter that world?
I guess both. Enter that world. Probably you wanted to enter that world first, right? Before a profession?
Enter the world was very young.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember taking classes at Theater for Young America.
Yeah.
Summer classes and and I guess early teens probably when it started to become a thing.
And that's kind of what Valron was talking about. Like it's in the teens that you begin to find this thing that you want to do. And
for sure. For sure.
Do you remember the first play you were in when you thought, I really want to do this for the rest of my life? Did something click, or was it, did it feel good immediately? Like, oh, I gotta.
It was fun. I knew it was really fun. Do it the rest of my life. I did not think that was possible until I got out of Kansas and got to Chicago. Right. Then I started seeing people who could do it, and it became more of a realistic thing. In Kansas, it was like this weird, I don't know. I mean, I guess I saw some people, like the teachers who taught at Theater for Young America, they were also actors. Theater for Young America was this great little theater in downtown Overland Park where we grew up. It was just but they did everything there. It was fun. It was
Yeah.
really fun.
It coming back to this idea of autonomy, where like Valeron talks about, like when people discover things on their own, it seems to have more significance for them.
Yeah.
No one else in your family were actors, right?
God, no.
So
For
how did it?
generations, all the way back. None of us.
So how do you think that it came to you? How do you think that you decided that acting became like your obsession or your passion?
I
how
don't
do you
know, man.
explain
How
that?
does that work? I
Yeah.
don't know. I guess we see it and get excited about it. My son was
Yeah.
started around age 5, got into parkour and
Right.
just
Right.
became obsessed with it, and unbelievable talent. Like
Yeah.
toured in Europe as a
Yeah.
13-year-old, 12-year-old doing crazy stuff. But now that's behind him. And now he's way into, he's a musician. He's a drummer
Right.
in
Right.
this band called Start Today, which is going on tour
Yeah.
at Instagram at Start Today HC for hardcore, which they are.
That's great.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's the same with me. Like nobody in my family was a
Nobody.
Francophile. Nobody was. My brother was kind of into Napoleonic Wars when he was younger,
Yeah.
but nobody
He was
like
into
thought about.
campaigns and war campaigns and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. But you come to own it on your own somehow.
That's
I don't
part of
know.
it, I guess, is that it becomes yours. It's personal. It defines you. You know, and
Yeah,
it could be anything. I mean, you talk about these reenactors. I remember getting into Missouri Town. Was this? You remember Missouri Town? It was
yeah,
this
yeah,
little town in Missouri that it looked like you were in the
yeah,
1800s. I think 1800s,
yeah,
early
yeah.
1800s, maybe pre-Civil War. I don't know. Anyway, and the actors would dress up, and then tourists would come and watch them, and
Yeah.
I was into performing, and somehow I became a square dance caller at a really young age too. I think I
Yeah.
was like
Oh,
10 or
really?
11. But they were so into it. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
God, were they into it? Like the
Like that's not.
buttons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not real gingham or something, like
Yes.
when they did it. That
Yes.
pattern of gingham didn't come out until 1920 or
Yeah.
something.
Oh God. Yeah.
Um, Real quick, in the book De la Francophilie en Amérique, which is the only book I could find specifically on Francophilia, but it's in French. It was written by a couple of French people, so I had to order it from Amazon France. That's one of the reasons why this show took so long.
And did you read it? Did you
I
read it?
translated it myself. Yeah,
Oh
so
my
these are
God.
my.
So you still got
I
it.
still got it. I still got it. But anyway, the authors Geneviève and Philippe Joutard say that Francophilia hits someone like a coup de cœur, which is like a blow to the heart, which is kind of like our love at first sight.
Mm.
And the Joutards say that in all of our conversations with American Francophiles, we found that Francophilia is a passion, never a reason. So
Right.
they're bringing it back. And so my
Yeah.
question of like, did your love of acting hit you all at once, or did it develop gradually over the more you did it? Or was it like did you know immediately, like, I love this.
Yeah. I knew that I liked performing and cracking people up and doing stuff.
Yeah.
But I just didn't think it was something. Yeah, I guess I thought. I didn't really think too much. I'm not very deep in general. So I think I just kept doing it, because I
Yeah.
liked it, kept exploring it.
Wow. And
Yeah.
do you think, I mean, looking at what they say about Francophilia, do you think your love of acting was passionate
Yes.
or reasonable?
Passionate. Yeah,
Passionate.
for sure. What about you and your Francophilia?
I think it was I think it was a coup de cœur.
But didn't
Basically,
yours come from? I guess it came. Yeah, you're right. Because your scholar. Excuse me.
yeah,
Your scholarliness came on later in life, right? You were into
yeah,
French before you started reading and studying.
right.
Yeah.
Which I'll try to explain. The more this really made me think about dig into where it came from,
Yeah.
which I'll go into in a second. But I remember in our kind of talking about what we're about identity and discovering who you are when you're a teen or an adolescent. In our series of comedic lectures, you told a great story about the time when you really got into BMX racing. And I was wondering, it's such a beautiful story, and I was just
Oh my
wondering.
God. It's so, yeah, it's so humiliating and great. I got into BMX racing. I don't know how I saw it. It was a thing, it was
Yeah,
happening.
yeah,
And I was terrible at sports. So it was a way to kind of be cool, I think. Oh, I'm going to be
yeah,
and I was decent on the bike. I could, and I convinced my parents, or maybe I bought it. I might have bought it, a Schwinn BMX bike,
yeah.
like
Very
a
very
pretty
cool.
good
Yeah,
one, like with a double gooseneck clamp and red line forks and mag wheels, and it was a
yeah,
lightweight frame. And I was like, this is, yes. And I would ride
yeah,
it and I would feel confident with it. And I started to ask for the equipment that I thought you needed for BMX. I didn't know
yeah.
anything about it, but like a helmet and a goggles and a guard to protect you from
Oh yeah,
dust,
yeah,
and all, some elbow pads or whatever it was. I got all that stuff, and I was so like, oh, and I remember I had I went with my mom to a BMX race to do it, and I was gonna
yeah,
do it.
yeah.
And I saw it at one heat, and it was so fucking scary.
You had never been to a race
I'd never
before
been
when
to
you.
it. I'd never done it. Was all a fantasy. Classic actor. You know what I mean? I'm just playing the role. And
You
and
were like into it without ever having seen an actual race. Is what's so great.
absolutely, and had no idea how dangerous these
Yeah.
things were. I immediately turned around, wheeled my bike back into the station wagon, and we went home. And there's this great picture of me, because I then had a surprise party for my birthday, and all my friends pitched in to get me this nice helmet. And I'm wearing all my equipment, and they're taking a picture of me because they're like, put it on. And I'm wearing it all. And you can see in my eyes that I know that I'm a fraud, that I'm pretending to be a
Yeah.
BMXer. And there's no way I'm
never going to
it.
wear this
No.
out.
I'm never, ever going to do one of those races because they are fucking scary.
Can't you guys take this back and get a refund so I can get a makeup kit or something like that? Some grease paint.
Clown white. Oh my God.
Anyway, that's a beautiful story. And remember at the end of our show, we would have that picture on an easel that you would turn around. It was just such a great moment.
It was. That was a great episode. Was that 10 Ultimate Moments? Or was that
10 Ultimate Moments. That's how that was. But the thing is, it fits into what we were talking about. It's like you wanted an identity, but it had come to you, but it was like as far as my Francophilia comes, I think and this is I think it started with my depression. And as you know, John, I have depression, like many people.
As do I.
As do you.
We both are. We have both been diagnosed.
I know. And depression runs in my family, which along with alcoholism.
Yeah, same here.
But looking back, I think I was really depressed but I didn't know it was depression.
Yeah.
And so I had lost interest in, like, when going into junior high, I just wasn't interested in anything really. At all. And I've always felt like I have to outrun my depression. Like I try to, I know that it will cut. I have to get interested in stuff and really get good at it before the depression sets in to where I lose interest and stop doing it.
Right.
And there's still, even now, even though I'm medicated and been in therapy, it's still there to a certain degree.
I think it evolves too as we get older. It changes and kind of tricks you in ways that are new.
Right.
Right. Yeah. At least for me.
which is, one good thing about this show is that it's every week is something entirely different. So
Yeah.
it's like I can. But in eighth grade, I took French, and it just hit me. It was that coup de cœur. It was just it. It just struck me as being something completely different. It was like an alternative reality,
Uh-huh.
an
Uh-huh.
alternative world just as real as Tatooine or Middle Earth. You know what I mean? And it had a completely new vocabulary, which was, people went to the la plage instead of the beach,
Right.
and dogs said, wah wah instead of bow wow.
Really? That's
Yeah, they
wrong.
they say
The
wah
French
wah.
get so much wrong.
The cat still says meow, but the dog says wah wah.
That's whoa, whoa. I could just see a guy with a long
Yeah,
cigarette and a
and I remembered like the cartoons they'd have in the French books, and they'd have like a dog, and they'd be saying wah wah. And like Steve Martin says, in that like comedy isn't pretty, I think it is, where he says those French have a different word for everything. You know what I mean? And then at some point in high school, I learned about the philosophical concept of ennui, which
yeah.
is ennui is just like that philosophical concept of overwhelming existential sense of boredom and lack of purpose and
Basically
lack.
what we all went through during the lockdown. The
Yeah,
entire world
yeah,
came
and the
down with
feeling.
ennui.
Yeah, and the feeling that nothing, you lose interest in everything, and nothing really matters.
Yeah.
And it struck a chord with me. So it was like having no passion or interest became my passion and interest,
Yes. Yes.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
And in French literature and French philosophy, there's existentialists like Albert Camus and poets like Charles Baudelaire gave a structure to what I was feeling emotionally. It gave a structure to my depression. It wasn't just me being depressed. It was something greater than that.
Yes.
Um, and then when I learned that like ennui was the French word for boredom, and the concept of ennui started in France, I thought to myself, I got to go there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was like a place where everyone's depressed. It's
Right.
like, that sounds fantastic to me.
Yeah,
It would
you'd be among your brethren.
yeah.
You
So
wouldn't have to pretend anymore.
right. So for me, France became like Disneyland for depressed people. And in this article, Stories of Frenchness Becoming a Francophile, Simon Coffey says that his research into Francophiles in England has shown that two narrative positions are noticeable in what he calls the Francophile repertoire. And the first one he says is that Frenchness was alluded to as an aesthetic ideal, a shared common repertoire of otherness. Like you feel like if you're a Francophile, you feel like you're different.
Right.
And again, this kind of applies to all passions, I think. And the second one was, he said, it's Frenchness in France were seen as a place of encounter, an individual repertoire of personal transformation.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah. It seems like these passions have to have worlds that are very, very rich. That
yeah,
you can really fall into, that there's it never ending, like
yeah.
I have a cousin of mine who is way into oh god, who wrote The Hobbit and all of those
Oh, J.R.R.
yeah,
Tolkien. And
way
yeah,
into it, and she just
right.
loves it, and it's just like she just dives in and
Yeah.
just loves it, and she
And
just
this,
discovered it, I think, recently in life too,
oh,
like
really?
into middle age. Yeah,
That's
she was like,
great.
I like this.
Once she reads if you read the Silmarillion, that's where he
She
goes into all
is.
the back. Oh, no.
She's reading it.
I tried to read that, and I was like, I was taking notes and everything, and it was like, what the hell am I taking these notes? But Coffey says that Francophiles often deploy the narrative device of difference opposition, so that what is attractive about the experience of France is commensurate with what is unattractive about the experience of England, which
Hmm.
is kind of going back to Mary's grandfather, or a lot of people would be like, well, in England, this is how it's better in England. They do that. It's better
I
than it
see.
is here. Um,
And
and
like I said earlier, we love telling other people stuff that we know and they don't.
I know.
God, we love it.
And so he says that, Francophiles in his study, it says that foreign travel, in particular to France, represented key moments or turning points
Mm.
of personal development. It becomes part of the life narrative of as youthful adventure and rites of passage. And these stories allow experience to be structured as a before and after story.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this was true for me. Like, I really never thought what I was going to do with French. I just knew I had to get to France, and
Uh-huh.
that
Uh-huh.
somehow I would be transformed when I got to France. And
Okay,
it,
I can relate to that. I can relate
yeah,
to that because for me, I think it was Chicago where I knew there was this comedy world, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's interesting.
What did you expect? I mean, when you went to Chicago, when you went to Northwestern, was it
Yeah,
Northwestern or just
yeah.
being in Chicago? Which you think was that
I
you
mean, to
saw
me,
as
they were kind of
transformative?
all one in the same because I had never really been outside of Kansas that
Right,
much.
right.
And nobody in my family had gone to school outside of Kansas that I know of.
Yeah,
So yeah, but I was just exposed to a lot of stuff really quickly. But that was where I first began to see people who could make a living,
right.
performing. I was like, wow, this is, I saw examples of it.
Yeah, I remember when we came up, Frank and I came up to visit you one time,
Yeah.
and you and I went out on our own, and we went over to the campus, and we crawled up on the roof of the theater building, I think it was, and came in an empty, like an unlocked door,
Yeah.
and we were in with all the costumes and stuff.
Oh my God, that's right.
And it did seem magical. It
Yeah.
did seem transformative, uh, in a way. Like, it was a magical world that we
Yeah.
had to crawl up there and then go through this unlocked door, and we were the only ones in with all of these costumes.
I
Um,
totally forgot about that. Oh
so,
my God.
how do you feel? Do you feel that going to Hollywood was transformative in that way, or was it?
Yeah, just to be around other people who are, I mean, Hollywood gets a bad rap, because,
Yeah,
but really what Hollywood is, from my point of view, is a bunch of people who just are dreamers, who just
yeah,
want to make stuff. They have ideas, and some of
right,
them are good, some of them aren't, a lot of them aren't.
yeah,
But they're people just passionate about making stuff,
right,
in the same
right,
way in the theater scene in Chicago. I mean,
yeah,
nobody was making money in Chicago. It was just all passion. It was just people like,
yeah,
we've got to do this. And we
yeah,
happened to be in the Chicago scene in the early 90s. We didn't know it at the time, but that was like a huge golden age
yeah.
of theater, independent
Oh,
theater
was
in
it? Was
Chicago.
it?
Yeah. Now
I
I
didn't
kind
know.
of looked back at like, wow, that was like a real,
Yeah.
yeah, because there was a lot of stuff happening
It
at that
was,
time.
I will say, it was so much fun. It was
So
so much
much
fun to,
fun. Oh my
yeah,
God.
to
Yeah.
do show, you could just get a space and do a show or
Yeah,
do some crazy
yeah.
shit.
And kids aren't doing that as much as in there. I'm trying to encourage them. It's like, it's not that hard, you guys.
Yeah. Uh, I want to mention a couple other things. I mean, we've talked about autonomy and competence, uh, but I also want to talk about a couple other things that apply to obsession, my obsession with France and all passions. And you've mentioned it already, but it's this, first is uniqueness. And this kind of segues into the psychological need of connectedness. But in the article, Humans and Uniqueness, Burgess Schump and Hans Peter Erb say that humans are social animals and that belongingness has been essential for individual survival throughout the development of the human species. And they say that accordingly, to feel socially connected is a strong and ubiquitous need. However, humans not only strive for belongingness, they also want to feel special and distinct from others.
God, that is the crux of the problem, isn't it?
I know. I
We
know.
want everybody to like us,
Yeah.
but we also don't want everybody to like us. We want to be
Right.
very special. Oh
Right.
my
We want to be,
God.
and they say that the best happiness comes when you have a moderate degree of uniqueness. Like
Yeah.
where, um, you try to find people who can be unique with you,
Yeah.
people who are like
If you're
you,
being
who can be.
unique by yourself, you're probably a serial killer.
Yeah. Uh, and in Escapism, the book Escapism, the writer Yi Fu Tuan says that one consequence of human biological uniqueness is that a person often feels slightly out of step with other persons,
Mm.
including ones who are closest by virtue of blood or affection.
Mm.
And he says it is usually within the family, again, coming back to our adolescence, but within the family that a child first learns about human disconnectedness.
Yeah.
So you begin to feel a little different from your family members,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're searching for separation from your family too, because I mean that's a big part of adolescence. I think is having that natural reaction to rebel,
yeah,
or in rebel's kind of a strong word. Sometimes it's rebellion, but it's just separating
right, right,
and finding your own way so that you can eventually live without your family and start
right.
your own.
And want your own identity, I guess, your own authentic identity,
Yes.
is what we're.
Yeah.
And so we always feel as an adolescent when you're trying out all these different things.
Yeah.
It's probably when you're feeling that otherness, or you feel like you're an outsider, like you're not connecting with anybody. But
Yeah.
that's kind of normal.
Yeah.
You have to go through that until you find the thing that you do connect with.
Yeah, but oh god, it's so hard.
And so the psychology website says that passion often helps us find our niche groups and communities.
Yeah.
So that's how you were describing, like when you found other actors, or you found
Yeah, people
went to
who
the.
yeah, it was amazing experience to find other people who wanted to do that. And that community is very inclusive and warm, and
Yeah.
it's competitive, very competitive too, but for the most part, it's inviting.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were an outsider when you were young, like within your family when you were coming up? Did you?
God, I don't know. I think I'm not deep. I don't think
Yeah.
things like that. I can't even get there. Did you?
I don't know. I thought
You were the
everybody felt that
youngest.
way. Yeah,
You were the
a ways, by a
yeah,
ways.
yeah. So you had that going. I
Um, yeah, it's hard for me to distinguish. I think it was always, maybe that's why we've as a four found each other,
yeah.
feeling like, but everybody feels like they're an outsider at that time.
I know.
You know what
But
I
you
mean?
feel the other part of it is that you feel like you're the only one who feels like an
Right,
outsider.
right. It's funny, the Genevieve and Philippe Joutard, they quote the writer Robert Darnton, who says that, quote, the Americans who love France, for the Americans who love France, it's like Freemasonry. We recognize each other. We share a secret, and that secret is France.
Ah, uh-huh.
So
Okay. You
it is
find your
true.
people. Yeah.
It is true. I mean, when I meet somebody who's really into France, I know what they're going to like, and what we can talk about, and what
Yeah.
we can mention, and
You can
jokes
connect.
we can make. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Same thing with, I guess now it's more TV and film production in
Yeah.
general. But
Do
yeah,
you
for sure.
do you
Or
feel the
improv.
same way? Yeah, improv, or with the same way
Yeah.
with other actors now? Do you
Oh,
feel the same?
yeah. Talking to other improvisers, and, I teach a little bit now too, which is
Yeah.
interesting because you pass it on.
I want to mention, just as we're winding down here, just what seems like the obvious reason to become obsessed with another culture, and that's escapism.
Yeah.
And in the article, Forms of Escapism, Mandy Kloppers says that escapism is the practice of seeking distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by engaging in entertainment or engaging in fantasy. And for her, escapism is a way that individuals detach from the day-to-day stressors and challenges of life.
Yeah. Sounds like
And
a hobby.
yeah, and I find that, I think that my life wasn't miserable growing up, but there was certainly a lot of anxiety about my mom. My mom was working a lot, and we didn't have much money, and we were moving into smaller and smaller places, and the
Yeah.
electricity would get turned off. So I think maybe my French was a way to get away from that uncertainty and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and to kind of, again, it became almost like a fantasy world
Mm-hmm.
of what, in my mind, I was living in France in the 1920s, like reading communist newspapers and going to Gertrude Stein's house and having these tumultuous relationships with, beautiful, brilliant women. And
you did that.
well, when I got there, the reality was different. I mean, Gertrude Stein was dead already.
Yeah.
But within 2 weeks of the classes starting, all the students went on strike to protest higher tuition. So
yeah, because it got up to like 1,500 francs or something.
Yeah, well, it's less than that. When I realized, when I finally asked him, this was like months into the strike, I was still paying it was a reciprocal tuition. So I was paying for a French guy to go to KU, and he was paying for me to go.
Right.
And he was still only paying like $25 a semester. You know? I was out there marching.
Crazy. They just like, you are getting over the healthcare and the college thing. They're all just like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, they were raising it up to like $35, and people were like, no, we're not going to class. So all I did was I spent a year just traveling around, smoking cigarettes, reading French novels, and having sex, you know, and it ruined me for life. It really did transform me.
Yeah.
Do you feel that like being like, did you feel like you escaped into your characters ever? Do you ever feel that way, or
No, I'm not that good of an actor. But I did escape into the culture of it all. Yeah. I mean, it was fun as hell. I mean, we would perform. I remember doing a show that we worked on together that started, I think, at 10. And, you know, we'd get out of there at 1 or 2. Then we'd go party till, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Then I would wake up at 6:30 and go substitute teach elementary school, get done at 3, come home, nap, eat dinner, and do it all over again.
Yeah.
And
so you escaped into
having sex with each other. Everybody was partying. It was crazy fun. So fun.
So you escaped into the character, or I mean, it's escaped into the lifestyle of what we were doing.
For sure, that I did, and because it was like, it was the closest thing. Basically, I wanted to do what my son is doing now, which is be in a band and have that kind of camaraderie and that kind of, performing and that, but I couldn't play an instrument, so I think I ended up doing comedy. I think in retrospect. But those shows felt the same, it felt like, an ensemble of people who were very close.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was so fun. So fun.
Remember at that time, it seemed like every improv, we didn't have one, but every group had some guy who was living out the John Belushi fantasy.
Right.
There was always some guy who was like way over the top with all the drugs.
Yes.
Of the, like usually a larger man, but they were all kind of that fantasy of what they had.
I mean, we were messed up alcoholics, but we were sort of, we just drank it and turned it into cancer inside us, I think.
Do you feel that being an actor lived up to what you thought it would be when you first started out? Do you feel like
so? Yeah, I've had a great run.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been great. I've been able to pay my, make my living doing it.
Yeah,
it's been great. Yeah,
I feel, when I came home from France, it was strange because I was still more depressed and alienated than I had because I'd been away for a year.
Yeah.
And so it was even, and the ennui was still there because it was really about the depression,
Right.
So it was strange because I still look at my life, for a long time I looked at my life before and after France, of like what I was like before France and what I was like when I came back. But it was really, I don't know, it was transformative, but not in the way I thought it would be transformative. I guess that's why I'm saying. But then I got into therapy and started taking antidepressants, and here I am today, a medicated Francophile.
Well, you were in a dark place when you came back from France. You know? And it took me a while to pick up on that, but then I did, and I was like, I forced you to come up to Chicago.
I know. Saved my ass, as you have many times. And I will say, years later, in 2008, Mary and I went to France. And I had been through therapy, I was on antidepressants, and I found that the love of France and French culture was still there, but it wasn't existential anymore.
Yeah.
It wasn't life or death for me. And it was much more realistic and authentic and probably a more profound experience for me.
Well, that's who you are now, too. You're more authentic a person, from all the work you've done and getting sober.
But, I will say, but the dog still said wah wah when I was so it still came back around. So anyway, all right, wrapping up, John. That was uncomfortable. That was uncomfortable.
That was great. I loved it. Thank you for doing that. This is human number 2 signing off.
And this is human number 1. Mary, I'm not sure if we answered your question about why people become obsessed with other cultures, why your grandfather did, but c'est la vie. C'est la vie. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks to our Patreon sponsors. We have our first live study session coming up. We'll shoot you some information directly on that. And other people, if you want to join us, go to our Patreon page where you can sign up and join us live every month.
Yep.
Just for a rap session. Just rapping.
Yeah.
We're just rapping.
We'll all get together and chat. Professor McCray will lead it. I'll be his TA.
Yeah. You'll do that. I'm going to try to get some, I wish we had transparencies that you can put out there.
Oh my God. Yeah, overhead projector. Fantastic.
Yeah. If we do a live show, we'll have to get that out.
That'd be great.
Thank you to Steve Basford for reaching out to us about his book, Breaking Away, a retrospective. Great book. I'm holding it up here. Go see it on...
Steve, thank you so much.
Very good book. And also, as always, thank you to Watson & Company Socks, who now have Sasquatch socks. Puppies Not Piranhas. They have Sasquatch socks.
I didn't know that.
They have.
All right, I gotta get. I was wearing my. Oh my God! Look at those. That's fantastic.
I'm holding them up. These are what people get if they become a PhD, or if you send us a topic that we use, you'll get a pair of these socks.
Wow. God,
anyway,
perfect. I had my oh, here they are. I've got my my Watson & Company socks right here. I was wearing them today.
Take those to Europe with you. See if
I will
expand over there. Talk them up.
Yeah.
Thank you to Puppies Not Piranhas on Etsy and Media Room and Great Lakes Opinion on Substack. And don't forget to check out our Two Humans Cave Shop on Cafe Press for t-shirts and other merchandise. Merci à tous.
Bye, everybody.
A bientôt. We'll see you. Thanks. Love you guys.
Bye.